They'll try to convince you that it is weakness, that being calm in the middle of chaos means you've gone soft, that if you're not shouting, sprinting, or reacting, you're somehow behind. But the truth is, stillness, real stillness, is the most dangerous form of power, because while everyone else is browning themselves out chasing the noise, you're sitting still, watching, choosing, waiting. Not out of fear, not out of passivity, but because you understand that strength isn't always loud. Power doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes, the most dominant force in one that says nothing at all. The world will pull at you every day. It will shove distractions in your face, hand you problems you did less for, put at your insecurities, and provoke you to react. And it knows that most people can't resist. Most people are addicted to the rush of drama, the quick fix of outrage, the illusion of action. They react to everything. But when you don't react, when you refuse to let the world bait you, something strange happens. The world doesn't know what to do with you, and in that moment you gain the upper hand, because you are no longer controlled. You're not yanked around by circumstances. You're not flinching every time something unexpected shows up. You're not giving your energy to things that don't deserve your attention. You're centered, anchored, and from that still place you make real moves. You respond with precision, not panic. You choose with intention, not impulse. That's what makes calmness lethal. Because while others waste energy reacting to shadows, you're already focused on what matters. Stillness is where clarity lives. It's where you hear what most people miss. In that quiet space between stimulus and response, you learn to listen, not just to yourself, up to yourself. You hear your instincts. You hear the truth rise above the noise. And when you act from that place, your decisions cut deeper. They're cleaner, more effective. You're no longer swinging blindly, you're striking with purpose. That's not weakness. That's surgical strength. But here's the thing, calm is not something you stumble into. It's not handed to you. You have to train it. You have to earn it. You have to resist the urge to jump to every fight, every comment, every slight. You have to let people underestimate you. Let them think you're passive. Let them think you don't care. And then you show them. Through the results of your discipline, through the impact of your actions, that your calm wasn't absence. It was calculation. And make no mistake, staying calm doesn't mean you don't feel. You're not a robot. You feel everything. They just don't get to see it. You feel the pressure, but you don't crack. You feel the fire, but you don't lash out. You feel the chaos, but you don't let it pull you under. That's strength. That's what real warriors are made of. Not the ones who explode, but the ones who endure. The ones who can sit with discomfort without being dismantled by it. Because when you're calm, you are unshakable. And that rattles people. It reveals the instability in others. Your peace exposes their panic. Your silence unsettles their ego. Your stillness reveals who's actually in control. You don't have to prove anything. You don't need to win the argument. You don't need to fight every battle. You just need to be so grounded in who you are that nothing pulls you out of that position. And yes, sometimes that means walking away. Not out of fear, but because your peace costs too much to be spent on noise. Sometimes it means saying nothing. Not because you have nothing to say, but because silence says it better. Sometimes it means slowing down. Not because you're lazy, but because rushing would only scatter your power. You're not here to burn out trying to be everywhere and everything. You're here to move with purpose. To stay calm enough to see clearly, and to strike only when the moment is right. So when they tell you to shout louder, move faster, react quicker, don't go the other way. Choose calm. Choose stillness. Because they'll never see it coming. And by the time they do, it'll already be too late. Control the mind, and you control everything. That's not just a saying. It's the foundation of all power, all peace, all progress. The battle isn't out there. It's in the economy, or politics, or even the people who seem to make life harder. The battle is in your head, and the one who learns to master the internal battlefield is the one who wins the moment. Every moment. You've probably felt it before. That split second where everything is on the edge. Someone says something disrespectful. A plan falls apart. Life throws something at you that you didn't see coming. And in that moment, you feel the wave rise. Anger, panic, doubt. That's the moment. That's the territory. If you don't claim it, it will claim you. Most people don't even know the battle's happening. They've already lost by default. They react before they think. They lash out. They spiral. And then they wonder why their life feels like it's being driven by forces outside their control. But the truth is, it's not the world that's out of control. It's their mind. And if you can't rule over your own thoughts, how can you expect to lead in other area of your life? You won't be consistent. You won't be stable. You'll be at the mercy of whatever the day brings. But if you train yourself to pause, to breathe, to observe your emotions instead of obeying them, you start to take back power. Real power. Not the kind that needs to dominate others, but the kind that makes you impossible to dominate. Because the one who controls their end walks into every room already ahead. While others are scanning for validation, they're focused on purpose. While others are distracted, they're locked in. While others are triggered, they're composed. This is how you gain the advantage. Not through force, but through focus. You become unfuel, not because life gets easier, but because your internal foundation gets stronger. The mind is like a wild horse. Leave it untrained, and it'll run you straight off a cliff. But if you discipline it, direct it, teach it to obey your command, it becomes the most powerful tool you'll ever have. The mind is where fear is born, but it's also where courage is chosen. It's where insecurity festers, but also where self-respect can be built. You choose what lives there. You choose what thoughts grow roots. That's the level of control you actually have, if you're willing to claim it. But let's be clear, controlling your mind doesn't mean pretending to be emotionless. It means you don't let those emotions dictate your choices. You don't shove them down. You see them clearly. You acknowledge them. But you don't bow to them. You put them in their place. You make them tools, not masters. That's the difference between being reactive and being responsible. Every moment has a trigger. Every interaction is a potential test. And the world is constantly trying to pull you into its chaos. But when your mind is calm, sharp, and trained, you don't follow chaos, you lead with clarity. You know what you stand for. You know what you're here to do. You don't get lost in gossip, or petty battles, or other people's projections. You stay locked in. That level of control builds a life that feels like yours, not one you're constantly trying to escape. And let me tell you something. This kind of control, this kind of self-mastery, doesn't come from theory. It comes from training. It comes from choosing discipline when distraction is easier. It comes from sitting with discomfort instead of numbing it. It comes from looking in the mirror and asking, who's in control right now? Me or my impulses? And being honest about the answer. Because that's the moment you start to take your power back. You want to stop being manipulated by every comment, every challenge, every change in your environment. And start by mastering what's in your own head. The one who controls their mind controls the moment. And the one who controls the moment controls their life. Silence is not the absence of power. It's the presence of mastery. Most people think that the loudest voice wins. The person who talks the most, yells the hardest, commands attention. But real power doesn't announce itself. It doesn't have to. It moves in silence and strikes with clarity. And if you've ever truly mastered a moment, you know exactly what I mean. See, ego is loud. It wants to be right. It wants to be seen. It wants to react, argue, defend, prove something. But when you're ruled by ego, you're no longer operating with clarity. You're operating with insecurity dressed as confidence. Ego blinds you. It distorts your view. It makes you act before you think, speak before you understand, burn bridges just to keep your pride intact. Silence, on the other hand, is the scalpel that cuts through ego. It forces you to sit with your thoughts instead of spilling them. It creates space to assess, to strategize, to ask yourself, is this even worth fighting? Am I reacting or responding? In silence, there's no performance. There's no mask. Just truth. And that's uncomfortable for people who haven't learned to face themselves. But here's the beauty: silence isn't weakness. It's restraint. It's choosing not to give your energy away to every impulse, every provocation, every meaningless distraction. And that's a discipline most never build, because their identity is tied to being heard, being seen, being right. But once you let go of the need for the prove yourself, that's when strategy starts to take over. When you're quiet, you begin to notice things others miss. You hear the intention behind the words. You sense the energy in the room. You see how people move, not just what they say. That's how leaders operate. That's how warriors plan. It's not just about charging the battle. It's about knowing when to strike and when to stand still. And that wisdom can only be sharpened in stillness, because the ego wants to win now, but the strategist wants to win right. And sometimes that means holding your tongue, walking away, or letting the noise pass by like a storm. You don't flinch. You don't respond. You observe. You think long term. You play the bigger game. Silence allows that. It gives you the room to build your next move instead of being dragged into someone else's chaos. People won't always understand our nuance. They might mistake it for weakness or passivity. Let them. Let them underestimate you, because the moment they stop watching closely is the moment you start building quietly. That's when transformation happens. When the world is distracted and you're focused. When they're screaming into the void and you're sharpening your edge in the shadows. And here's something people rarely say out loud. Silence teaches you who's really in charge of your mind. If you can't sit in stillness without scrambling for validation or noise, you haven't built discipline. You've built dependency. You're addicted to the world's chaos to avoid your own. But when you train yourself to a Bruce's balance, you step into a level of personal sovereignty most never reach. That's when your decisions become cleaner. Your thoughts become sharper. Your confidence becomes rooted, not in how loud you are, but in how little you need to say. And when you finally speak, every word lands with weight, because it's not coming from emotion, it's coming from alignment. You're no longer leaking energy through pointless arguments or emotional outbursts. You're conserving it, owning it. So, and when the moment comes, and it always, when someone challenges you, insults you, misunderstands you, your silence isn't surrender. It's strength. It's choosing not to waste a drop of your power on something that doesn't deserve it. And that makes people uneasy, because they can't predict you, can't provoke you, can't pull you out of your frame. That's control. Silence breaks ego, yes, but more importantly, it builds strategy. It gives you the space to make your next move your best move. It's not about hiding. It's about waiting, watching, refining. And then, when the time is right, execute with precision while everyone else is still making noise. So don't fear silence. Don't rush to fill the space. Let it refine you. Let it shape your strength quietly. Because when you're grounded in silence, you're no longer reacting to the world. You're designing your place within it. Power isn't just about what you control. It's also about what you refuse to give away. And nothing gives away your power faster than an emotional outburst. The second you let your emotions drive your behavior instead of your principles, you hand over control. Not just of the moment, but of your identity, your influence, your path forward. You might think you're asserting yourself when you explode, when you yell, when you storm off, but really you're reacting. And reaction is the opposite of power. People think anger is strength. They confuse being loud with being commanding. But real control, lasting, grounded, unshakable control, is quiet. It's composed. It's deliberate. That kind of strength doesn't need to be announced, because it's felt. And you only build that kind of strength when you stop letting your emotions dictate your every move. Let's call it what it is. Emotional outbursts are leaks. They leak your energy, your time, your discipline. And they come with a cost. Every time you let frustration boil over, every time you let someone push your buttons, and you snap, what you're really saying is, you own me. You're admitting that they've taken the wheel, and you've stepped out of the driver's seat. That's not strength. That's surrender disguised as passion. Now don't get me wrong. Emotions aren't the enemy. They're part of the human experience. But they're terrible leaders. They're designed to signal, not to steer. Anger, sadness, disappointment. These emotions are meant to show us something needs our attention. But once you let them start making decisions for you, you're no longer acting with clarity. You're reacting from pain, from pride, from ego. And that's when mistakes are made. Bridges burned. Opportunities missed. Think about the moments in your life when you regret how you showed up. Were those moments of calm clarity or moments where your emotions were in charge? Be honest. Most of the time, the damage isn't in what happened. It's in how you responded to it. The words you can't take back. The face you made. The silence you broke that should have remained. You want to lead. Then learn to hold the line. You want influence. Then don't be easily provoked. Because the person who stays grounded when everyone else loses their head, that's the person who gets remembered. That's the person others turn to. That's the one who holds power. Discipline is choosing your response when every part of you wants to react. It's feeling the fire in your chest and choosing stillness instead of a spark. It's being bigger than the insult, bigger than the inconvenience, bigger than the ego screaming for revenge. That's not easy. It's not flashy. But it's how you build a reputation of strength that doesn't waver when pressure hits. And let's be real. People will test you. Life will test you. You'll get cut off in traffic. You'll be lied to, misunderstood, challenged. But that's the arena. That's the training ground. That's where emotional intelligence is forged. You don't develop it in silence and solitude. You earn it in the heat of pressure, in moments where you could lash out, but don't, where you could strike back, but you hold. Because when you refuse to engage in the chaos, you force the chaos to deal with itself. You don't absorb it. You don't recycle it. You become a wall it cannot climb. That's power. That's composure. That's dominance. Not over others, but over yourself. And you might be thinking, but if I don't speak up, won't I look weak? No, you speak up when it serves the mission, not when it soothes your ego. There's a difference between choosing silence from fear and choosing silence from strength. One is hiding, the other is positioning, and the world knows the difference, even if it can't always explain it. So next time you feel yourself boiling, next time someone tries to drag you into their storm, ask yourself, do I want to win this moment, or do I want to win the war? Emotional outbursts might win the moment, but strategy wins the war. You can either be remembered for your outburst or respected for your restraint. That choice is yours, every time, because your power was never in your volume. It was in your control. There's something unnerving about a person who doesn't French, who doesn't take the bait, who just stands there, eyes steady, breath calm, heart still, even when chaos is streeing all around them. You want to know why that kind of person gets under people's skin. Because calm is power, calm is clarity, calm is control, and when someone is rooted in that calm, it reveals everything the other person is lacking. That's why your calm mind just settles you. It triggers them. People who are ruled by their own chaos can't stand stillness in others. It exposes their imbalance. When you match their panic, when you don't mirror their anger, when you don't dance with their drama, they feel seen in a way they're agree for, and not because you're judging them, but because your stillness is a reflection, a mirror, and in that reflection, they realize they're not in control. That's uncomfortable. That's confronting. That's why they lash out. That's why they push harder. They're trying to pull you into the storm because it's the only way they feel grounded, by making you just as unsettled as them. But here's the true thing. The moment you stay calm in the face of their storm, you win. You don't win through dominance. You win through presence. Because what's more powerful than a person who refuses to be shaken? What's more intimidating than someone who just watches the chaos, unmoved, knowing they're still holding the pen that writes the next move? See, calm isn't weakness, it's strategy. When someone's yelling, flailing, throwing emotional punches, they're revealing where their control ends. But when you stay quiet, when your breathing doesn't change, when your energy doesn't react, that's then you become the axis everything else starts spinning around. You become the center, and everyone else becomes noise. Now some will try to provoke you more. They'll raise their voice. They'll throw in sarcasm or spite. They want you to flinch. Don't give it to them, because what they're really saying, "Isio, why won't you come down here into the mud with me?" And you simply don't. Not because you're scared, but because you've already fought those battles internally. You've made peace with yourself. And when a man or woman is at peace themselves, the world loses its grip on them. The key is understanding this calm isn't a reaction. It's a decision. You don't stay calm by accident. You train it. You commit to it before the storm even shows up. That means working on your breath when no one's around. That means learning to sit in silence instead of rushing to respond. That means rehearsing stillness until it becomes second nature. Not because you're trying to impress anyone, but because that calm is your anchor, and without it, you're just another leaf blowing in the wind. And yes, it will frustrate people. Your calm mind will expose the drama they carry. Your refusal to engage will higher need to be seen, to win, to be right. But let them right, let them be loud. That's not your battlefield. You don't owe anyone your peace. You don't have to match their frequency. And you certainly don't have to defend your calm. The world will always try to hijack your emotions. It'll use stress, traffic, emails, gossip, criticism, social media, anything it can to pull you out of your center. But the game isn't about fixing the world. The game is mastering yourself in spite of it. That's what separates the wise from the reactive, the grounded from the triggered, the leader from the loudest voice in the room. So stay calm, especially when it's hardest, especially when they expect you to explode, because your calm doesn't just preserve your energy, it becomes your weapon, a silent one, an invisible one, but in misdirective kind. Let the chaos unravel, let the noise peak, let them try to provoke you, and when it all settles, they'll realize you were never playing their game to begin with.